Okay, so have you ever felt like you're the one throwing off the whole dance line?
Yeah.
Like your moves are stuck in the awkward phase?
We're diving into the world of dance A&D AI to see if technology can help us become better group dancers.
In this deep dive, we're looking at some really interesting research about how something called computer vision could totally change how we practice dancing together. Think like real-time feedback, personalized insights, the works.
And we have an expert with us today to break it all down. So, to start off, can you give us a little Dance 101? What makes group dancing so special but also so challenging?
Well, even before we bring in the tech side, it's important to realize how deeply rooted group dance is in cultures all around the world. Plus, there are so many benefits. Physically, mentally, you name it. But getting those synchronized moves down, that's the tricky part.
It's true. There's a reason those perfectly in sync dance videos go viral. It's super impressive. But why use AI for this? Isn't there already tech out there to help people improve their dance moves?
Yeah, there is, but it's mostly focused on solo practice. This research looks at using AI to help groups learn and synchronize their moves, which hasn't really been done before. And they chose a really interesting test case, amateur cheerleading.
Cheerleading, that's not the first thing that comes to mind for high-tech dance training.
I know, right? But it actually makes a lot of sense. These dancers are often young and under a lot of pressure to perform these complex routines, and they might not always have dedicated coaching.
That's a really good point. And did you know cheerleading is provisionally recognized as an Olympic sport now? It takes incredible athleticism and precision. How did the researchers even start figuring out how to use AI to improve group dance, especially in that kind of high-pressure world?
They decided to see how cheerleading practices worked in the real world. They observed a team of 16 dancers, 11 learners, and 5 instructors to see how these challenges played out in actual practice sessions.
They went straight to the source. Observing real-world dynamics is so important, but watching is only one part of it, right? How did they figure out what these dancers were thinking and experiencing? So they weren't just silent observers, right? They got the inside scoop from the cheerleaders, too.
Yeah, they did. Along with those observations, they did these in-depth interviews with both the learners and the instructors. That way, they could compare what they were seeing to what the dancers were actually experiencing.
Okay, so they were really thorough. What did they find out? What were some of the big challenges they uncovered about how group dance practice works, especially in cheerleading?
Well, one of the biggest things that came up was this idea of the small group struggle.
The small group struggle.
Yeah, basically, they saw that during those smaller practice sessions where it's just a few dancers and an instructor, the instructors couldn't give as much feedback. Like, they were trying to keep an eye on the whole team, so giving really specific feedback to those smaller groups was tough.
Right, that makes sense. Especially in cheerleading, where being in sync is so important. If you don't get those little corrections early on, it's easy to feel lost.
Exactly. And it wasn't just something the researchers noticed. The cheerleaders actually talked about it in the interviews.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they said they really wanted more personalized feedback, especially in those small group sessions where they're working on all the details.
So, more personalized feedback. Did they find anything about when that feedback is most helpful? I imagine getting feedback during a move versus after could make a big difference.
Absolutely. The timing is huge. The paper actually looks at 2 main types of feedback. Real time, which happens during the movement, and post-movement, which is afterward.
Makes sense. So which one did the dancers prefer?
Well, they found that both are important. But the dancers really seem to like getting that instant feedback, that real-time stuff.
Oh, yeah, I can see why. It's like an immediate course correction.
Exactly. They said in the interviews that it helped them catch mistakes before they became, like, bad habits.
But I'm guessing the post-movement feedback is still important, right? Like to really understand what went wrong and how to improve.
You got it.
Yeah.
It gives you time to process everything. It's like real time is great for those quick fixes, but post-movement is where you can dive deeper and think about how to get better for next time.
So how does AI fit into all of this?
Well, the researchers think AI could actually help give dancers that perfect balance of real-time and post-movement feedback in a way that human instructors might not be able to, just because of time and attention.
Okay, now we're getting to the good stuff. Did they actually make any AI tools to test this out?
They did. They looked into using computer vision, which basically helps computers see, and pose estimation, which lets them track how people are moving.
So like motion capture, but with AI.
Kind of. And here's the cool part. They focused on using technology that's already out there. Like they use RGB cameras, which are the same type of camera we have on our phones.
So it's not some crazy expensive technology. That's really interesting. What did they actually build with these cameras?
They created 5 different technology probes. Each one tested a different way of giving AI-powered feedback to the dancers. Some used visual feedback, and others used sound.
Visual feedback, huh? I'm a visual learner, so I'm hooked.
Yeah.
What kind of visual feedback are we talking about?
Okay, picture this. You're practicing in front of a mirror, right? But this isn't a regular mirror. This one has an augmented reality overlay.
Ooh, augmented reality. Okay, go.
As you're dancing, you see this skeletal image of yourself in the mirror, showing you exactly how the AI is tracking it and analyzing your movements. It's like those virtual try-on tools for clothes, but for dance.
That's amazing. Did it actually work?
Well, it's not quite that straightforward. It actually brought up some super interesting challenges
Oh no, what kind of challenge?
and opportunities too. It
Yeah.
really showed us just how complex it is to use AI in a group setting because of those human dynamics that come into play. And I think it'll be super interesting to your listeners.
You're totally right. We definitely need to talk about that more, but we're running out of time.
We'll get into all of that and more right after the break.
That augmented reality mirror does sound really cool, but I guess new tech always has some kinks to work out. Did the researchers find any other challenges with it besides those tracking delays?
They did. Like, imagine trying to take a group photo, but your camera can only see a tiny area. That was one issue they ran into.
The augmented reality mirror had a limited field of view.
Yeah, so if the dancers were too spread out, the camera couldn't see some of them very well, which meant it couldn't give them accurate feedback.
It's like, what's the point of having this cool technology if it can't even see what everyone's doing?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it just goes to show that these little technical details can make a big difference for the user. The AI has to be able to see everything clearly, or else the feedback won't be that helpful. Makes sense. So they had those technical challenges. Were there any, unexpected challenges, maybe with how the dancers reacted to the AI feedback?
There were, actually. It's funny how tech and human behavior can be so unpredictable when you put them together. One really surprising thing they found was that the AI feedback, even though it was supposed to be just for each dancer's own improvement, kind of made some of them competitive with each other.
Oh, wow. I would have thought they'd be too focused on their own progress to compare themselves to the others.
You'd think so, right? But humans are social creatures, you know? Even when we're trying to improve, it's hard not to see how we measure up to other people. So even though the AI was giving them individual feedback, some of them still saw it as a competition, like who's doing better.
So it's like those scoring systems. Even if they're meant to be helpful, they can sometimes backfire and make people more competitive.
That's exactly it. It shows how important it is to think about the social and emotional side of things when you're making technology for groups. Like, how can we give feedback in a way that's encouraging and helpful without making people feel like they're competing with each other?
It's all about finding that balance. But it wasn't all challenges and caution, right? There were some really cool, positive results from using the AI too, right?
Absolutely. One of the coolest findings was that the sound-based feedback was really good at getting the dancers to work together. They used sounds to help the dancers synchronize their movements.
Oh, like a high-tech version of clapping along to the beat.
Exactly. Hearing those cues together, even if it's subliminal, really does bring people together. It makes you wonder. Maybe the future of AI and dance isn't just about showing us what we're doing wrong, but about creating these new ways to connect and collaborate.
That would be amazing. So where does all of this leave us? Do you think AI can really help us become better group dancers?
It's definitely still early, but I think AI has a lot of potential. One big thing this research shows us is that flexibility is key. What works for one group of dancers might not work for another, and that's okay. We need to adapt the technology to fit the dancers, not the other way around.
It's about finding the right approach for each group and each dance style, like a personalized dance coach powered by AI.
Exactly. And we also have to be really careful about how we use and present this technology. It's not just about the feedback itself, but how that feedback makes people feel. We don't want to create unnecessary competition or anxiety.
It's like we've been saying throughout this whole deep dive. Technology is amazing, but we have to use it thoughtfully, especially when it comes to something as social and creative as dance.
I totally agree.
Well, this has been a fascinating conversation. Thank you so much for breaking it all down for us.
And for our listeners, if you want to learn more about the research or see videos of these AI dance tools in action, head over to our show notes. You'll find links to everything we talked about, plus some bonus content.
That's all for today's deep dive. Until next time, keep exploring the incredible world of dance and technology, and never be afraid to bust a move, even if it's a little awkward at first.